Defense Department confirmed Venezuela has flown military aircraft over a U.S. Navy ship near South America for the second time in 2 days. The president has threatened action if the country does so again.
I think it sends a message of victory. I think it sends really a message of strength. We're very strong. We're much stronger than anyone would really understand.
The first attack. On September 4th, 2025, at 3:14 p.m., 2 Venezuelan F-16 fighter jets broke through the clouds at about 5,000 feet. They were flying low and fast, using what pilots call a hook attack. This move allows a plane to swing wide and then dive at its target from the side or behind. The target that day was the USS Jason Dunham.
It comes as the Defense Department confirmed that 2 armed Venezuelan F-16 fighter jets flew over a U.S. Navy ship in the region on Thursday.
A U.S. Navy guided missile destroyer sailing in the Caribbean Sea. Venezuela wanted to make a point by flying near it. U.S. officials called it a show of force. The destroyer's defenses. The USS Jason Dunham is not just any ship. It is an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer with the Aegis combat system. That means it can track planes, ships, and missiles across hundreds of miles all at the same time. It is also armed with some of the most advanced defensive weapons in the world. When the Venezuelan jets came down through the cloud deck, the destroyer's systems reacted instantly. The CRAM launcher turned toward the sky, ready to fire. This system defends against supersonic and subsonic threats, including cruise missiles, drones, and helicopters. Modeled after the Phalanx weapon system, it replaces the 20mm Gatling gun with a launcher that carries up to 11 rolling airframe missiles. These missiles are agile, fast, and accurate, able to track and destroy incoming threats before they ever reach the ship. The system combines the extended range and precision of the RAM missile with the high-resolution search and track sensors of the Phalanx Block 1B, giving it a reliable and quick response against almost any aerial target. It is also an affordable upgrade that fits neatly where the Phalanx sits, needing only minimal changes. Right next to it, the original Phalanx CIWS dome began spinning, its Gatling gun capable of firing thousands of rounds per minute. Together, these 2 systems formed a lethal shield. Obsolete weapons. But the Venezuelan jets had a big problem. They did not carry the right weapons to attack a destroyer. These planes were built in the early 1980s. Venezuela bought them from the United States in 1983 under a program called Peace Delta. At the time, they were modern, but by 2025, they were very old. Because of U.S. sanctions, Venezuela could not buy upgrades, spare parts, or new missiles. Their F-16s still had the same old weapons they got decades earlier. The only weapons on board were guns and AIM-9 Sidewinder missiles. Sidewinders are made to shoot down other planes, not ships. They work by locking onto the heat from an engine. Against a destroyer, they would do nothing. The jets had no Harpoon anti-ship missiles, no GPS-guided bombs, no laser-guided bombs, and no anti-radar missiles. Their mission computers were too old to even use GPS coordinates. In short, the F-16s had no real way to hurt the U.S. Navy ship. Outdated tactics versus modern technology. Even though the odds were against them, the Venezuelan pilots pressed on. They dived lower, trying to surprise the destroyer. Low-level runs like this once worked in the 1970s and 1980s when radar was slower. But in 2025, these tactics were useless. The Dunham's Aegis radar could track dozens of targets at once with pinpoint accuracy. The movements of the F-16s were visible from far away. The destroyer could see every dive and every turn. Its computers created firing solutions instantly. By the time the jets got anywhere near the ship, they were already being tracked perfectly. The old Venezuelan tactics simply did not match up against modern technology. Radar limits of the F-16s. The Venezuelan F-16s relied on the AN/APG-66 radar, an X-band solid-state pulse Doppler planar array system first designed in the late 1970s by Westinghouse Electric, now part of Northrop Grumman. This medium-range radar, capable of detecting targets up to 80 nautical miles or 150 kilometers away, was standard on all F-16A and F-16B models, including those exported to Venezuela in the 1980s, while later U.S. F-16s were upgraded with more advanced radars such as the AN/APG-68 and AN/APG-83. Venezuela's fleet never received those improvements due to sanctions.
The U.S. is taking tough new action against the regime of Nicolas Maduro. Venezuela will now be facing many of the same restrictions the U.S. has historically imposed on Cuba and North Korea. All assets of the Venezuelan government in the U.S. will now be frozen, and transactions with people who have their assets frozen will be banned.
The APG-66 eventually found use in other aircraft, like the U.S. Customs and Border Protection's C-550 Citation, the Navy's P-3 Orion, and the Piper PA-42 Cheyenne II. But against a modern U.S. destroyer, the radar struggled. At low altitude over the ocean, sea clutter, waves, and salt spray filled the scope with noise, leaving Venezuelan pilots half-blind while the ship's powerful Aegis radar tracked them with ease. Fuel, coordination, and communication problems. The F-16s also had problems with fuel. The Venezuelan planes were Block 15 models. Their fuel tanks were small, and they lacked modern drop tanks. Every second they spent flying near the destroyer was burning fuel they needed to get home. Communication was another weak point. Their radios were old. They did not have modern data links like Link 16. They could not share positions or targeting information in real time. If one pilot said, "Turn left," the other might hear only static. The destroyer, on the other hand, shared information instantly with other ships and aircraft in the area. Electronic warfare, the SLQ-32. The USS Jason Dunham also had electronic warfare systems. It switched on its ANSLQ-32 system. This device can create false signals on enemy radar. It can make one ship look like three, or make the ship vanish completely from the radar screen. For the Venezuelan F-16 pilots, this meant confusion. Their old radars were not built to handle this kind of jamming. One moment they saw a target, the next moment, it was gone. The destroyer was fighting without even firing a shot, just by tricking their electronics, aging aircraft, and system failures. Another problem was the age of the Venezuelan F-16s. These aircraft were more than 40 years old. Many had cracks in the airframe, failing hydraulics, and unreliable wiring. Some could not even fly anymore. The few that did often had broken instruments. Trying to fly combat missions with broken dials and frozen screens made the job even harder. Some pilots had to guess their position or speed. The Venezuelan Air Force did not have the money or parts to fix these problems. The planes were simply too old to fight in modern conditions. The second day, September 5th.
Donald Trump, usted tiene que cuidarse, porque Marco Rubio quiere manchar sus manos de sangre, con sangre suramericana, caribeña, con sangre venezolana. Lo quieren llevar a un baño de sangre y que su apellido, Trump, se manche de sangre por los siglos de los siglos, con una masacre contra el pueblo de Venezuela, con una guerra terrible contra Sudamérica y el Caribe, porque esto sería una guerra completa en todo el continente.
Despite the failures of the first attack, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro ordered another mission the next day. On September 5th, the F-16s went back into the air. But things went wrong even before they reached the destroyer. One plane's navigation system was off by 20 miles. The pilot thought he was flying over the coast, but he was still over the jungle. Another jet's artificial horizon, the gauge that tells the pilot which way is up, froze in place. This left the pilot half blind. He did not know if he was level, climbing, or diving. Still, the Venezuelan jets pressed on. They were ordered to confront the U.S. Navy ship again. Engine failure in flight. During the second approach, one of the F-16s suffered a major problem. Its engine went into a compressor stall. A compressor stall happens when the airflow inside a jet engine breaks down. Instead of pushing forward smoothly, the engine coughs, shakes, and sometimes shoots flames. The pilot's plane began to shudder. He could not keep formation. He had to pull away just to stop the aircraft from crashing into the sea. The second jet kept flying toward the destroyer, but its instruments were unreliable. The radar flickered on and off. The navigation system was wrong. The electronic warfare from the destroyer filled the screens with static. The Venezuelan pilots could not find a clear picture. They were flying almost blind, while the destroyer tracked every move. The final runs. Despite everything, the Venezuelan jets tried one last run. They flew toward the USS Jason Dunham, hoping to make the Americans react. The destroyer's defenses locked onto them. The C-RAM missiles were armed. The Phalanx CIWS had a firing solution ready. The crew was prepared to shoot at a moment's notice, but the order never came. The captain of the Dunham did not fire. He did not need to. The Venezuelan jets were already failing on their own. With broken instruments, low fuel, and no useful weapons, they posed no real threat. The F-16s turned away. Their mission was over. They headed back to base, low on fuel and systems failing. The aftermath.
What happens if Venezuela flies jets over U.S. naval vessels again?
Well, I would say they're going to be in trouble. We'll let them know about that. We heard that happen, but it wasn't really over, not like they described. But I would say, General, if they do that, you have a choice of doing anything you want, okay? If they fly in a dangerous position, I would say that you can, you or your captains can make the decision as to what they want to do, all right? Sure. Say it.
How close did they get? You said the planes did not.
Well, I don't want to talk about that, but if they do put us in a dangerous position, they'll be shut down.
In the end, the Venezuelan mission achieved nothing. They did not damage the ship. They did not scare the U.S. Navy. All they showed was how outdated and weak their Air Force had become. The U.S. response was clear. Within days, 10 F-35 stealth fighters were deployed to Puerto Rico to support operations in the Caribbean. More warships also moved into the region. The American presence only grew stronger.
President Trump has assembled a pretty big naval task force off the coast of Venezuela.
And we've recently begun using the supreme power of the United States military.
Meanwhile, the Venezuelan F-16s went back to their bases, some limping home with failing systems. Their efforts had shown the world how far behind they had fallen. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel.